TL travelers, and welcome back to the TL Travel YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about AI because that does seem to be the topic on the top of everyone's minds lately. And more specifically, I'm going to be talking a little bit about using AI for travel planning and whether or not I feel like travel planners, consultants like myself, are at risk of having their jobs stolen by AI. So what I've gone ahead and done is have ChatGPT whip up a travel itinerary for a destination that I'm very familiar with, a destination that I have planned for and traveled through quite often, so that I can have a look at that itinerary and talk a little bit about the benefits, the pros and cons to that itinerary. And then I've also just gone ahead and asked the AI point blank their feelings on the situation. So grab yourself a tea or coffee. This one is going to be a doozy, and let's just jump right into it. So first and foremost, the most obvious benefit I feel to using an AI for your travel planning is the amount of time that it saves. Obviously, travel planning is something that can be incredibly stressful and time consuming, especially if it's something that you're not super comfortable with already. And AI goes above and beyond as far as capabilities of analyzing, researching information, and bringing you back the best of the best in its opinion. In less than a minute, AI can analyze a ton of data, bring that information back, and provide you with somewhat up-to-date recommendations on locations, itinerary, accommodations, all of that fun stuff. Whatever you ask it, it is going to tailor that itinerary to you in exactly the way that you've requested it. I also found that AI seems to think a little bit outside of the box in that it provides you with really the most logical itinerary for your trip. And in order for me to sort of better explain what I mean by that, I'm going to reference the trip that I had it planned for me. So generally, when I travel to anywhere, but specifically Thailand and Bali, which is where I had my AI plan this itinerary for, I like to travel either in a circle or kind of in a straight line, because that just makes my brain feel great. And I know that a lot of travelers feel the same way. It just makes logical sense to move north to south or east to west, or, circle around. So I was incredibly surprised when the AI brought me back a 6-week itinerary where we started in Bangkok, Thailand, moved north to Chiang Mai, all the way south to Phuket, that kind of area, back up north, and then down to Bali. And when I asked the AI why it chose to schedule our itinerary that way, it explained to me that because the distance of the flights are relatively the same and the cost is relatively the same, it makes more sense to travel south in the middle, break up your trip with some beaches, and then go back to the north to continue in the mountains and things like that, that it would just sort of feel better as a trip. And it was sort of trying to follow where the best weather was predicted to be. So I thought that was really interesting, the way that it doesn't follow the typical tourist trail. Because in my mind, I had assumed that AI would just be pulling itineraries from various trips, across the internet, and most of those trips would be circular. So yeah, I just found that to be really interesting. So the amount of time that it saves is huge. And then again, the thinking outside the box and even just allowing you to start somewhere a little different before you go ahead and make your own planning adjustments. So on a broader scale, I'm not gonna lie, AI seems like a great planning tool. It even had me a little bit worried for a moment, but I'm not gonna lie, there are definitely some places where AI falls short. First and foremost is the personal touch, the personal experience. Obviously, an AI is not going to be able to mimic that. And there are some aspects of travel planning, especially for more custom consultants like me, that AI just won't be able to live up to. For example, I have clients who will always prefer to take a mid-afternoon flight because they like to get up and enjoy their breakfast, then take their flight, and they don't want to have to wait for check-in when they arrive in their next destination. And that's just something that, because it's not a quote-unquote logical choice, AI isn't likely to recommend things like that, and you are going to have to put in a lot more work using a lot more specific prompts in order to get an itinerary that's been planned for you in that specific way. A close friend of mine also has some mobility issues, for example, that need to be taken into effect when we are planning trips for her. And while an AI would be able to, in theory, plan for you an accessible trip to an accessible destination, it will be able to choose accessible hotels, for example, or make room recommendations. It may not exactly be able to look at the area around the hotel and know whether or not you're going to have good luck with accessible restaurants or what it's going to be like navigating the streets, things like that. That really having someone who knows you and understands you and has that human emotion will be able to interject into your trip and make sure that it is the best trip possible for you. And so now I actually want to go ahead and share with you some of the quote unquote self-criticisms that the AI had, because at the end of the day, I just decided, why not ask the AI itself what its downfalls in travel planning were? And I'm going to read a couple of those to you verbatim right now. So I have them here. The first was its limited ability to adapt to changing circumstances. And what it wrote was, AI systems may not always be able to adapt to changing circumstances or unforeseen events, such as weather disruptions, unexpected closures, or emergencies. In these cases, a human travel agent or planner may be better equipped to provide real-time assistance and support. So that support that you generally get through a booking agent or a travel consultant, where you find yourself perhaps delayed in an airport somewhere, or there is some sort of weather emergency or local emergency that's stopping you from getting to your next location, or the hotel that you're at just isn't what you want and you don't know how to go about moving or getting a refund, all of those little tiny sort of intangible things that travel agents do. Obviously, you're not going to get that accounted for in an AI itinerary, nor is AI really going to be able to assist you with those types of things in the moment. You will sort of just be left alone. And then the second criticism that AI had of itself was really the most interesting one to me. So this one was limited scope of recommendations. And it said, while AI can provide personalized recommendations, it may also have limitations in terms of the range of options that it can present. For example, it may only recommend popular tourist destinations or hotels that have partnered with an AI provider, rather than considering smaller or lesser known options. And that statement, partnered with an AI provider, is sort of really what piqued my interest the most, because as somebody who works with smaller boutique hotels and really likes to sort of travel off the beaten path and support local and do all of those things, it's slightly concerning to think that, say, Hyatt, for example, could partner with an AI system to always recommend its hotels or hotel branches, things like that, anything under its umbrella, when someone is planning using an AI system. And it kind of eliminates that trust factor as well, that you would get with a human who's been there and sort of knows what's best, knowing that the system could be biased in that way. But it didn't stop there, because as far as negatives to using an AI for travel planning, it then doubled down with potential bias as its next negative point. And that point read, AI systems are only as unbiased as the data that they are trained on. If the data used to train the AI is biased, this can then lead to biased recommendations or inaccurate information being presented to travelers. It's important to be aware of this potential issue and use multiple sources of information when making travel decisions. Which again is interesting, because when you think about it, a lot of the benefits that people see in using AI to plan their itineraries for especially longer haul trips is the amount of time that it saves you. And don't get me wrong, again, I still agree that it is a time-saving mechanism. However, it is also recommending that you fact check that information, use other resources to continue with the planning process, all those types of things. So at the end of the day, you really are still spending quite a bit of time in the planning process, at the very least, just fact checking the information that you've been provided. And so in that way, it doesn't really save you that much more time than it would to just provide that information to a professional travel planner and have them make that plan for you. And then the very last thing that the AI did point out as far as a negative goes is the danger of travelers' reliance on technology during their adventures, and that in relying on technology too heavily, you risk missing out on, on the fly experiences, little cultural things that it can't necessarily predict for. And I thought that was kind of cute that it acknowledged that, just a heavy reliance on technology in general can be a negative when you are traveling the world and you are just trying to have like an authentic experience, that reliance on technology can kind of negate that a little bit or hinder that a little bit. So I wanted to go ahead and just sort of share that point as well, because again, I thought it was, just very self-aware of the AI to express that as one of its potential downfalls and one of the downfalls for you. So before I move on to how to best utilize this technology, I did just want to quickly summarize that yes, I do feel like there's definitely room to make use of AI in planning, especially when you're just getting started on an itinerary, if you're looking for some inspiration or just a base to build up on. Absolutely time saver, love it for that. But when it comes to adding those personal touches and those cultural experiences and just sort of making it a trip specifically for you, that's where a travel consultant or a planner would really be beneficial, or just you as a human being would be beneficial. So I agree that there is a place for AI. Do I feel like it's going to absolutely negate the job of travel planners, consultants in the future? I do not. But for anyone who is interested in using AI to play around and start the travel planning process, get an itinerary started, I just wanted to share with you a few prompts and suggestions that I have in order to make that a little bit easier, smoother for you. So in my instance, I'm using ChatGPT prominently. That seems to be like the most common system that people are using right now. The first tip that I have for you is to be precise in what you're asking for. I found that if you sort of provide a ton of details all at once about every single thing that you want to see, do, where you want to go, stay, all of those things, it kind of gets complicated and overwhelmed and doesn't really know how to answer the questions in the way that you might necessarily be intending to ask them. So starting with something as basic as, I'm looking to visit Thailand in September of 2024 for 2 weeks. Can you recommend an ideal itinerary that allows me to visit beaches and mountains and islands? Something simple like that will really get the ball rolling, and then you can elaborate with extra questions or recommendations on top of that itinerary. The second is just to be clear and concise. You want to avoid any sort of shorthand, slang, or jargon that the AI may not have been trained on and may not understand, because that is going to throw a wrench in the answers that you get back, could cause some confusion. And then my third is going to be to just use complete sentences, good grammar, all of those types of things. The AI has been trained to listen like as a human and then respond in a human-like way. But at the end of the day, same with the, no jargon, no shorthand, that type of thing. It does respond better to complete, clear, and concise questions. And then the last tip that I have for you, I think is probably the most important, or the one that I found to be most important, was to provide context in your questions. I found that going into the question or the chat script with a description of sort of who the AI is in all of this is really helpful. And I'll give you an example. So for example, in my trip to Thailand, I actually started that chat by saying, you are a professional travel planner who specializes in eco-friendly luxury travel. And how that helps the AI is that when it's looking for information for its answers, it has in its mind sort of who it is, And it really helps to support the type of research that it's looking at and the type of answers that it's going to bring back to you. So providing context, super important. And I found that I definitely get a lot more accurate responses in doing that. And then last but not least, I thought that it would be just really fun to top off this video, end off this video by going ahead and just asking the AI straight up, will you replace travel agents, travel consultants in the future? And I want to read you the response verbatim that it gave back to me because yeah, I found it really interesting. So here it is. I asked, will AI eventually replace travel consultants completely? And the AI responded, while AI has the potential to revolutionize the travel industry, it's unlikely that it will completely replace human travel consultants anytime soon. While AI can provide personalized recommendations based on data and algorithms, it may not be able to replicate the human touch and empathy that comes with working with a travel consultant. Many travelers still value the expertise, experience, and personal touch of a human consultant, particularly when it comes to more complex or high-stakes travel decisions. A skilled travel consultant can provide customized advice and guidance based on a traveler's unique needs and preferences, as well as provide real-time support in case of unforeseen circumstances or emergencies. That being said, it's likely that an AI and automation will continue to play an increasingly important role in the travel industry, particularly for simpler and more routine travel decisions such as booking flights, hotels, and car rentals. AI can help to streamline and automate these processes, freeing up travel consultants to focus on more complex and personalized travel needs. Overall, it's likely that the future of travel planning will involve a combination of AI and human expertise, with each playing a complementary role in providing travelers with the best possible travel experience. And to that, I completely agree. I think there's definitely room for both, but I do strongly feel, especially now that I've been playing around with it for a little while, that it is sort of to your benefit if you do work in travel to play around with it yourself and really sort of get on board with learning how to use it. Are there some concerns that come along with AI? Absolutely. I'm not trying to negate that at all, but the fact of the matter is that AI is here and it is sort of really assisting in the planning process. And if it's not going anywhere, it's a technology that you're gonna need to learn about if you don't want to be left behind. So that's my opinion. That's the AI's opinion, all that fun stuff. But if you have an opinion of your own, I would love to hear it. So feel free to leave it in the comments down below. And until I see you in my next video, stay great, travel safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.